My most awaited MacBook is finally about to come out, but some people are saying that it's gonna be a disappointment. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the full specs, we're gonna talk about the battery life, the price, and what is my opinion about this machine, and if it's gonna be worth buying it, or if you should wait for the M3 13-inch MacBook Pro. Now, I wanna start out by letting you guys know how we know that this is going to come out. Now, a while ago, I made a video talking about the one Mac that I want, but Apple doesn't wanna give us. But here in 2023, I think that they just didn't have a choice anymore, and I'll explain why. Now, we've had info about Apple working on a 15-inch Air for a long time now, but then things got quiet. But recently, things have gotten very clear. I wanna give you guys the latest info, and this month, we have this leak that the 15-inch MacBook Air components are already underway, that the production is already started for this machine. And this is from Ross Young, who has the most accurate track record in terms of his leaks. He is in the supply chain, specifically on the displays, and pretty much everything that he's mentioned has been correct, other than the name of the iPhone SE3. And if that's not clear enough, the 15-inch MacBook Air was also spotted in App Store developer logs with the M2 chip. And just days ago, a Korean news aggregator, Yuke's, also said that the 15-inch is going to come with the M2 chip. Now, this guy was actually the first person that leaked the notch coming to the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. So it is clear that it is 100% coming, and it's coming soon. We also have some specs on it. But what happened with the leaks of the M3 chip coming in this machine? Well, I'm gonna talk about that in just a sec, but first I've gotta talk about the perfect sidekick to any MacBook, the new Geminos monitor for mobile pixels, featuring ergonomically designed dual-stack 24-inch monitors with minimal gaps between them and very minimal desk space required, thanks to the built-in base that has extra ports like USB-A and C ports, Ethernet, and 2 SD card slots. Plus, the monitor angles can be quickly adjusted and pivoted to match your preference and height of the built-in 1080p webcam. So check out the Geminos dual-stack monitor using the link down below. Now, with these leaks of the M3 chip coming in this machine, that was a dream come true. Me finally getting a slim machine that is thin and light and just really nicely designed with MagSafe and the powerhouse of the M3 chip. So what happened? Well, first off, we know that Mac sales were down a massive 40% in Q1. Before that, we were down about 28%, which was horrible, but people are not buying Macs for a few reasons. Now, we made a whole video about this, which you can check out. But what happened with the M2 chip is that they were more expensive with the new M2 MacBook Air, and the chip, even though it is better, it wasn't that big of an upgrade, and the M1 MacBook Air was available for a killer price. So because of that, Apple ended up shutting down the M2 chip production for 2 months, which they have never done on any current chip that was being made. And then when they relaunched that, well, they only started making them at half the production that they had before. And we've recently had info that Apple has a crazy oversupply of this chip, so much so that they are gonna update the 24-inch iMac and put in the M2 chip in there, when previously they were gonna skip that because it's not a crazy seller anyways, and wait for the M3. And even the iPad Air that has the M1 chip, they're gonna upgrade that earlier because they have so many chips. Now, with the 15-inch MacBook Air, we are expecting a design to be identical to the 13-inch MacBook Air, just scaled larger. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing at all because unlike the M1 MacBook Air, we have MagSafe built in, and then we have 2 Thunderbolt ports as well, and they are Thunderbolt 4 based, so they are very powerful. Now, in terms of the performance, there were some leaks talking about the M2 Pro being in this machine, but that is just absolutely not realistic, even though I would love to have the upgrade to be able to spend a couple $100 more. Even if that means that you're gonna get close to the price of the 14-inch MacBook Pro, I think that would be awesome, but then it's gonna kill sales from that 14-inch MacBook Pro. So for Apple, it makes sense to keep this thing weaker, which is why they are also putting the M2 chip in there instead of an M3 chip. Now, on top of that, we got info that TSMC is struggling to create enough 3nm chips for Apple. They're only at about a 55% success rate for these chips, and they don't even know if they're gonna have enough for the upcoming iPhone 15 Pro. And Apple makes way more money on the iPhones. That's a much better seller than on MacBooks, which actually sell less than iPads and services and everything else. So because of that, and because of that limitation, it also makes sense to throw in these M2 chips that have an oversupply. Now, we also had in Apple Store's data, the specifications is basically the same thing as the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air. So you have 8 gigs of RAM, and you have the bin version, and then you can spend a little bit more money and get the unbin. So because of that, and looking at Apple's current products, they're putting out the iPhone 14 Plus. They're trying to give us more options, more budget options, especially in these times where everything is very expensive, people have less money. This machine makes sense because people would want to buy it for that larger screen. And that's my only complaint about the M2 MacBook Air. I love the size, I love the weight, the thinness, just sometimes the extra screen real estate would be really good, especially for productivity. So because of these limitations for this device, it makes the most sense to have it start out at $1,400, $200 more than the regular 13-inch model. And then of course, with that, you're gonna be able to spend more money. If you wanna unbin it, that's another $100, getting you up to $1,500. And then if you upgrade your RAM and your SSD, which I would suggest for performance, well, there goes the price tag. And now you're at a 14-inch, like, maybe I should spend a little bit more money, get the mini LED. So because of that, people are saying with this M2 chip, which we personally call the stopgap, is it still worth it? Well, personally for me, I think that this machine being so thin and so light, and with the new design, it is more than powerful enough for most people. Heck, we still recommend the M1 MacBook Air. And when we call the M2 a stopgap, technically it is, because if you look at the performance of the M3 chip based on the leaks of the A17 and how all the other chips stack together, we have a full video on this if you need more info. It's gonna be more powerful than the binned M2 Pro. It's gonna be an insane chip. So yes, it is a stopgap, and yes, that is disappointing to buy a brand new 15-inch, but you have to look at what you need the machine for. These Apple Silicon processors are very, very fast, and they destroy the Intel chips that were out before. So if you don't need the absolutely best performance, which most people don't, it is still gonna be an excellent machine. And I think the trade-off, getting a machine much earlier and having that larger size, I think it's gonna be killer, especially with the efficiency of the M2 chip and with the larger battery. Now, as far as battery life, I recently made a video covering how to get the best battery life out of your MacBook using low power mode. And using low power mode, you can get insane battery life with the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air. Now, the battery in this thing is gonna be a lot larger, Personally, I think it's gonna be about 83 watt hours. That's a lot. That is 58% larger than the 13-inch model. Now, where do I get this? Well, I'm basing it off of Apple's previous Macs and how everything stacked up. So if we take a look at the 15-inch MacBook Pro, it had an 83.5 watt hour battery in that enclosure. And yes, the MacBook Air will be slightly thinner, but it is also that new kind of squarish design that has more room internally. And Apple loves to max out their laptops to put in the biggest battery that they can. So the battery life is gonna be absolutely ridiculous and real world use for simple scenarios where you're emailing, web browsing with that low power mode with the M2 chips, powerful efficiency cores, you're gonna be able to get 30 hours of battery life. I mean, it sounds insane, but check out my battery life video for me to show you how that even works and how that's even possible. So you guys can check out that video right over there. So personally, I do not think it's gonna be a disappointment. I'm very excited for it. You guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.